All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to talk loud. Hopefully everyone can hear me. And then as you're finishing your lunches, just work your way up here so Jennifer can have a great audience. But first off, thanks so much for coming. Thanks, Clozd with a D, Clozd, however you pronounce it. It's actually Clozd, but no one knows how to pronounce it, right? But thank you so much for providing this venue and the food. And really good food too. So thank you so much. A couple of Product Hive announcements. First, I want to just take the time to thank our volunteers. We have several here tonight, actually. So Danny, he basically records every speaking event that we have and edits it and uploads it to our YouTube channel. So thank you, Danny. We have a new event organizer. We also have Nick, a new event organizer. Nick Boulanger. Right? Nick was super eager to become an event organizer and join Product Hive and help put on some of these events. So thank you. We also have Olivia back in the back, who's also an event organizer. Thank you, Olivia, for all you do. And we have our lifer, Brandon Gardner, of course, right? He'll never get away from Product Hive fully. He's always attending at least, right? Always. Did I miss any volunteers? I think so. Okay, great. So a couple announcements. Front is next week. All of you get 30% off if you want to register. If you're unemployed, you get 70% off. So that announcement came to your email, so feel free to use that code. If you don't have it, Slack us. We also have 2 events planned in May, so come join us. One is May 10th. It's going to actually piggyback on what Jennifer is going to talk about today. And it'll be more of a panel discussion at Underbelly in Salt Lake. And then also we'll be at AwardCo on May 25th, talking about mental health and product design. So both more UX focused, but we'd still love to have you. And without further ado, I'd like to just invite Nate up from Clozd to tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we'll kick off the event. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody. We're excited to have you here. I wanted to spend just like 20 seconds explaining what we do here at Clozd because you're a captive audience, and what good marketer doesn't want to take advantage of a captive audience, right? So how many of you have ever been dating a significant other and then they broke up with you and they said, it's not you, it's me, and didn't give you a real honest answer as to why they were breaking up? It's a really awkward experience, and there's always that nagging question in the back of your mind of what happened? Did they find somebody else? Did my breath stink? It could be 1,000 things that maybe you did wrong or that they did wrong or that something that made your relationship fall apart. Well, we, Clozd, are like the BFF that you send to go talk to your ex to find out the real story of what happened. So that's what we do for businesses. We go talk to buyers from Clozd Won and Clozd Lost deals. We talk to customers who may be at risk of churning or have churned, and we go talk to those people on behalf of our clients, and we figure out why they made the decisions that they made, and then we report all of that information back to our clients so that they can make changes and improvements to win more deals and retain more customers. It's as easy as that. We're like the gossip collectors in the B2B space. We collect all the gossip and then tell you what's most important. So that's what we do. We're really excited to have you here. Before I introduce Jennifer, I wanted to invite you all to scan this QR code right here. I'll get out of the way. Jennifer's gonna do a poll in the middle of her presentation, and this is a way for her to, or for you guys to kind of give your opinion and your thoughts during her poll. So leave that up for just a second, make sure everybody gets logged in. I saw all the phones up, phones are coming down. I'll wait till everybody's phone's down before we skip over to the next slide. You guys are great, like a techie audience. I love that I don't have to explain how to use a QR code. Awesome. Okay, now I want to introduce the person that you all came here to see. Her name is Jennifer Moore, and she's a dear friend of mine. Jennifer has been in the tech space here in Utah for over 2 decades. She has worked at some amazing companies. She's worked at Zions Bank. She's worked at Wells Fargo. She's worked at Pluralsight. She's worked at Workfront, where we met. Now she is the head of product management. Is that the right? I always get product management and product marketing mixed up. Product management here at Clozd. And I personally have a deep love for Jennifer. She's an amazing person. We worked at Workfront together. She might tell a little bit more of this story for a few months. And we didn't work in the same department. We didn't really work on the same projects, but we connected and hung out once or twice. And she's the type of person that when you meet her, you just know like she's in your corner. And so I think her presentation today will reflect that. She is full of empathy and kindness, and I know she genuinely wants everybody here to take whatever the next step is for them to get them into a position and a role at a company that they love and they really enjoy. So please welcome to the stage, Jennifer Moore.
Thank you. I actually want to give you a hug after that.
Of course.
Okay, now you're gonna make me cry.
Oh no. I'll take it all back.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nate. I appreciate that very kind introduction. And thank you, Product Hive, for showing up. You all took kind of time out of your day to come here and to be a part of this event. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are finishing your lunch, come up and join us when you can. I am so excited about this topic. I know it's a rough one. Just to say something like recession gets a little bit like, but starting first here, Nate showed a few of the places that I've worked. It's not as simple as that, right? We all know that. Our careers are pretty messy, right? So I'm going to show you a little bit, I'm going to walk through a little bit of what I mean by my career signature here, which was being part of major market shifts that then led to product innovation. In 2001, after 9/11, a small company started up in Utah. We were headquartered in the Instructure building. Does anyone know where that is? The Instructure headquarters? Yeah. We were there on the top floor. Your work at Instructure?
Is it this one or that one?
Instructure in Cottonwood Heights, I think. Yeah. So we were there on the top floor. I was the 17th employee hired, and a company called Oakley Networks, and they were an internet monitoring company. So we basically worked for the DoD fighting terrorists. Leave it at that. I could tell you more, but I'd have to kill you. They were acquired by Raytheon. This was my first exit. It was really exciting. I was a couple years out of college, and I was like, whoa, this big check is what happens when you like basically don't sleep. And we had cots and shaving kits, and we ordered dinner almost every night at that company. It was really insane, but a lot of fun being part of this very, very tiny company and my first exit. Banking has been through quite the ringer in the last decade or so. I joined a small 100-person group within Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo's huge. I joined a very, very small group, and we were responsible for making the new health savings accounts, right? They were brand new. President Bush had signed those into law in January 2004. And I was part of the team, the small team inside of Wells Fargo that was responsible for making these things profitable. And the answer to that is they are not. So eventually they sold off this part of the business to Optum. But in the meantime, I felt like I was part of, again, a very small startup with a really huge VC. So we had all the coverage, and we were just having a great time. Also, very, very challenging. Also didn't feel like I ever slept. It was a lot. But that was Wells Fargo. Then, for Zions Bank Corporation. Zions Bank Corporation is the parent company of Zions Bank and 5 or 6 other banks regionally in the Western United States. Banking, again, going through a difficult time. There's a lot of disaggregation happening. Disaggregation basically means we don't need you as the middle person. And I was responsible for product managing all of our mobile payments and getting into more mobile banking. And it was meant to be very disruptive and innovative. It was at a time when we were questioning if people would even pull out their phones to pay at the point of sale. Like that was the thing, is like, would someone actually do that? We don't know. Like, should we invest in this? I don't know. So this was back in like 2013, right? 2013, 14. So I was getting involved in fintech and partnering with these smaller fintech companies before fintech was even coined a term. So that was also very interesting, very fun. Workfront was probably the most intensive 4 years of my career so far. Hopefully ever. But it was the market shift that was happening there is, as we all know, in 2020, massive change. We all experienced a once in a many generations shift with the global pandemic. So Workfront is a work management platform with a goal to help companies be globally distributed and working across lots of different departments as well as time zones. So Workfront was acquired in 2020 by Adobe. I then ended up at Pluralsight. I did not know that I was joining a public SaaS company that was going to be going private again. Vista Equity Partners came in. This is about the time when there's a shift happening where formal education is less important and you have more emphasis on skills. So Pluralsight is a technology training company, technical skills training company. And so we did a massive acquisition of $1.5 billion of A Cloud Guru under Vista Equity Partners. And I'm not going to go any further there because I think we all know what's happening here. So we'll just keep moving. So that was Pluralsight. And then I joined Clozd, which I've only been here for a couple months, but it's amazing. And who knows what will happen. But the shift here is we are headed into a recession, we think. And we definitely, as Nate talked about, we definitely, as businesses, as product people, we need to know why we're winning and losing, right? That's a really important thing. So I walked through all of that. And what I want you to be thinking about is how, not this, but your careers, right? Like as you're looking at this, what has your career been like? Where have you started, ended up? What shifts have you been a part of? What product innovations have you experienced? Because that's one of the things that helps you kind of create more of that overview of this is the career that I built for myself. What do I want next, right? When I started, when I was a young, freshly graduated BYU student, I really did legitimately think that my career was going to look like this. Did anyone else have this same kind of fallacy of thinking-ish? The metaphor that we've heard is the career ladder is actually a jungle gym, right? Like it's something that you have to crawl around and work towards. It's actually not even that. It's not a career ladder. It's not a jungle gym. It is this. This is our career, right? This is the mess that becomes our career. Somewhere in here, you get a job, you maybe get a few promotions. I myself have been promoted, demoted, reorged. I've had, you saw the kind of the nice, beautiful timeline. In 20 years, I have had 30 different manager changes. So my average manager time is like 8 months for the same manager. I've had 24 different titles, like distinct titles and descriptions of what I was supposed to be doing. So you can imagine with all of that change that there's a lot of mess that is happening externally. In general though, our careers are based on we're employed, we maybe go through some promotions, demotions, reorgs, we are unemployed, either we quit or we're involuntarily unemployed, we're job searching, and then we get an offer, and then we start a new job. Right? And then we go all the way back to the beginning, right? And this will happen many, many times in our career. And so we're gonna talk about that in just a second. This noodly mess is not what's important. What, in terms of recession-proofing yourself? What is important is this. This line represents not what's happening externally, but what's happening internally. That is the only way that you recession-proof yourself, is by not worrying about as much what's happening here, but what's happening in this container. So this line is representative of your consistency, non-reactivity, resilience, your zen, your career equanimity, confidence, the keep calm and carry on that you feel, and this one, which is my favorite, and your recession-proofedness, right? So the more you can get to this, the better you will be, right? In terms of all the career changes that you're going to go through, because they are inevitable. And there's going to be external forces that are constantly changing things in your career that you can't control. So what I want you all to come away with today is this belief that you are recession-proof, that you do have the control to make this happen. So let's go to Slido here. If you brought up your phones already, if you haven't scanned it, you can scan it again here. There are 4 questions. You can answer them. They're anonymous. So if you'd like to participate, you can just enter in your information. A couple questions there. I'll give you a minute. Once you're done, if you just want to look up, I'll look for eyeballs. Okay, let's see what responses we have. So there looks like there's 23, 31. Okay, we still got some coming in. I'll give it like 15 more seconds. Okay, let's get to know each other in this room. Again, anonymously, safe space. We all know it's difficult out there. We all know that there's a lot of shifts and changes happening. Okay, I'm gonna go for it. Hopefully we can get a couple more people in there. Okay, so how many years have you been working full time? Just to get a sense for who is in the room. So our highest is 11 to 15 years of experience at 26%. Wow, more than 21 years experience. I didn't expect that actually, 23%. And then we kind of have a few more there. So that's our mix of our group here. So based on that, and it's actually pretty evenly distributed, which is pretty cool. Based on that, how many times in your career have you been involuntarily unemployed? About 60% of you at least once, twice, 30-ish%, and then a few more there. So pretty much the majority of us have experienced at least one. There's maybe, it looks like 4, well, let's see, I don't even know. Yeah, so everyone's experienced at least one period of involuntarily being unemployed. How many have been in the past 3 years? Just curious based on how volatile everything's been in the market. So for 50% of you, it's been before 2020, and then for about 15%, it's greater than the 20 or than 2020. Yeah. Okay. All right, and finally, when you experienced involuntary unemployment, what was the strongest emotion you felt? So we have in the middle here some fear, frustration, anxiety, shame, despair, worrying about loved ones. Yep, hopeless. Yeah, these emotions are all very universal, right? And they can feel somewhat paralyzing. So I just want everyone to take a minute and realize, like, we're not alone. Everyone's been through at least one period of involuntarily being unemployed and have experienced this. We're going to talk today about, I'm going to use being laid off as kind of the main example, but these principles and the things we'll talk about today apply to any time in your career where things are just going off track. You're not getting the promotion you want, your boss just left, you're worried about where your position in everything goes. Anytime that you're feeling these types of emotions, these principles can help. So how do we get to calm? There are 4 things we're going to talk about today. One is connecting with others, accumulating savings, learning, and marketing yourself. This is how you stay calm. But how do you do that when your brain is feeling all of these emotions. When we have fear, anxiety, depression, hopelessness, right? When we feel all those things, our brains kind of go a little haywire, right? And that's a defense mechanism, that's a protection for us. And our executive functioning, right, the thing inside our brain that makes decisions, that self-regulates, that self-directs, that is able to manage themselves effectively, problem solve, right? Think about the future, make goals. Our brains kind of go a little crazy with all this emotion and all these issues, right? And so what I want you to be thinking of here when it comes to kind of the neuroscience part of this is the person in your brain in charge of connecting, that person who's driving is the equivalent in your executive function, right? Your executive team in there is your chief sales officer. That's the person who's supposed to be connecting. You're accumulating savings and building towards wealth. That person in your brain is your CFO, your chief financial officer. Learning, we're going to call that person your chief product officer. Market yourself, that's of course your chief marketing officer. So you have all these people in your brain. And what happens is when your career is getting off track, they get together and they have a powwow in your brain, okay? And it sounds a little something like this. Your CMO says, we need to run a campaign. We got to get some paid ads out there. We got to upgrade to LinkedIn, premium. We got to get content out there, remind everyone of all the great work we're doing. Let's go. And your CPO says, guys, it's all about the jobs to be done. The job to be done here is get and stay employed. We got to get some feedback channels going. We got to get some empathy sessions going. And we're going to need to take some people to lunch. Let's start taking some people to lunch. And your CFO says, guys, we don't have any money for that. We're not doing that. And your CSO, your chief sales officer, is of course sitting in the corner because she knows she's not making her quota this quarter, but she's smiling because she's not going to tell anyone until the end of the quarter, of course. So how do you take this executive team that's hijacking your brain and going all haywire, how do you take them and make sure that they are doing something productive to, again, get you back to that calm? You are the CEO of your own brain, obviously. So as the chief executive officer, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the four ways that we just introduced. And I'd like you all to have your phone out or wherever you like to take notes. So your Things app, your To-Do app, your reminders. And in each section, I want you to just have one key takeaway that you personally are going to go as the CEO of your brain and go tell them, this is what's up, this is what you're going to do next, right? So I want you to actually be writing these things down, because if you don't write them down, you will not remember, right? So make sure to do that. So I'll pause after each one and we'll go there. Okay, let's first talk about your chief sales officer. This one is actually the easiest job. Sales is the easiest job, right? No, it's not. But in this case, it is actually pretty easy. What do you think of when you hear the word networking? Like, what comes to mind?
Conversations with people.
Conversations, yes. Anyone else? Lunches.
Connections.
Connections.
Learning from others.
Learning.
Events, conferences.
Yeah, events and conferences.
Product Hive.
Yes! That's right. This is an event like that. When I hear the word networking, I personally feel a little bit anxious. Does anyone feel anxious? Okay, so we have some brave people in the room, like, willing to admit this. So networking makes me really anxious. And I think partly because if it's like kind of a technical term, like we're all in the tech industry, most of us, and like this whole technical thing, I don't feel good. So I am going to recommend that you don't think of it as networking, but as many people said, conversations, making connections, right? So how do you make connections with other humans? One of the reasons that I think we overcomplicate networking or connections is because of this. We think of relationships in terms of time invested, the quantity, with the relationship depth. And where would you expect this arrow to go that I'm about to show? Which direction is it going to point? Anyone? Yes. Whew. It's really fun seeing 10 of you go like this. I think I'm gonna do that again. So yes, the more time you invest, the deeper you would feel that relationship would be. In your career though, as we think about time invested as an input and the relationship depth as an output, the impact that has in general, you would think like bigger impact for people that are on this higher end of the scale versus the lower end, you would think the impact that relationship actually has on your life. And then if you narrow it down to your career, I would propose that it's opposite in a lot of ways when you think about your career and needing to make connections. The people who are you're closest to are generally not going to have as big of an impact on your actual career as the people who you're not as close to. That impact is probably going to be a lot bigger. I'll explain what I mean here. In the center of your human relationships circle, right, you have your family and close friends. This is the smallest group, unless maybe you have a really big family, but generally speaking, this can be your smallest group, right? As you go out, you have your current coworkers, your professionals, your neighbors, your friends. Your current coworkers are not going to be as able to help you get your next gig, right? It's going to be your former coworkers, college, high school friends, and distant relatives that can actually help you. And an even bigger group that you have to draw on, that's probably even more important in some ways, is former coworkers of former coworkers, friends of friends, and your third cousins. Which, by the way, my third cousin is here. Like, yeah. We don't know each other that well, but like professionally, we help each other out, right? Sweet. Okay, so like literally, he is my third cousin. We have the receipts. Okay, so this record, it actually looks like a record. Anyway, a vinyl. So this vinyl is kind of showing us that the people that we spend the most time with are not necessarily going to be people that we are really going to get as much help from. So this is my 4-step primer on how to make connections with other humans to help you in your career. 1, there was a period, and I think it might have been pre-pandemic, there was a period there during LinkedIn's history where there were a lot of posts where people said, if we haven't met in person, don't connect with me, right? Did anyone see any of that? Yes, okay. I'm not the only one. Like, I call bullshit. Like, LinkedIn is there for shallowness. Social media in general is shallow, okay? So go collect these people like pennies. Make your connections. Make as many connections as you can. Live your life and be a good human is the second one. And what I mean by this is you don't need to, like if you say like, I'm an introvert or I don't have time to take a bunch of people to lunch, just go live your life. Be someone who people want to help, who people want to be around, and most importantly, do not think of relationships as a balance sheet, quid pro quo, or give and get, right? Think of it as doing good without expecting anything in return. Because we all know, as we all know, the universe will reward us. The third one is, don't try to predict the future usefulness of a relationship. The best example I have of this is actually Nate. As Nate said, we didn't work together closely at Workfront. We knew each other kind of in passing, but when we were chatting, I think it probably ended up being less than 3 hours that we worked together, probably on different projects. I think so.
That's probably what happened is like, one travel trip together.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was like a couple hours. Like it wasn't a lot, right? Nate, of course, being in marketing here at Clozd, he spent over 3 hours helping me prepare for interviews and getting to know the people that I was going to be meeting and getting this job. Like Nate helped me for over 3 hours, which brings me to my second point. So this is one. Oh, and then I have another example too, actually. The people who have the biggest impact on your career may be the most random connections. This one is actually my husband at one point on Facebook, I think. This was like many years ago. I think this was 10 years ago. a decade ago, my husband wanted to connect with other people on Facebook, and he created this group of people that were going to pair together and work out together, try different things. Like, I'll come to your Pilates class, I'll run with you, I'll box with you, whatever it was, right? So he paired up, he got all these random people, and I don't even remember how he knew this person, but a person named Matt, he and I connected on Facebook Messenger like once and kind of said, hey, should we work out together? And then we never scheduled anything. Like 5 years later, he was a person that I contacted because I knew of him, and he worked at Workfront. And I was able to work with him. He spent over 4 hours with me preparing and helping me get that job. So super random, because my husband one day decided he wanted to like create a workout group. I don't even know like what happened with that or how that worked, but they can be really random. So the final thing here is that people want to help. People are good, right? In general, people are good. They want to help, so take them up on their offers. Story time. I had a former coworker who told me about this experience where he went through a reorg, and part of that was that his boss was leaving. The CEO came into the leadership team meeting that he was a part of and said, I'm available to anyone. I will meet with any of you anytime, right? About a month later, he had scheduled the one-on-one with the CEO, and the CEO said, you're the only one out of 9 people that I offered that to that took me up on my offer. This is a CEO of a big company, like thousands of people at this company. And he had offered this time, and only 1 person out of 9 took the offer. When it came time for a special task force to be developed, the CEO thought of this person and asked him to join that task force. So when people offer to help, take them up on their offers. Because in general, people don't. So putting my money where my mouth is, if you send me a message on LinkedIn, I will be happy to connect with any of you. 15, 30 minutes, let's connect, right? So go to LinkedIn, connect with me, message me, and I'm happy to connect with any of you and provide any advice or go into more detail or just hear your stories, just hear you out. So this is my offer. Now, write down one thing that you took away from that section. How are you going to make better human connections? What is the thing that you're going to do, right? Of all those ideas, maybe looking at the vinyl record, it sparks something like, I do need to go talk to my 3rd cousin. That would be important, right? Maybe that's the thing that you want to do. Okay, so write that down if you haven't. All right, now let's talk about your chief financial officer. Okay, let's start by getting real. When we are involuntarily unemployed, one of the biggest things that we feel, and we saw that in our word cloud, is anger, right? We go through all the emotions, we go through all the grieving process, but if we're real with ourselves, we're angry because we're afraid. Anger is always rooted in fear. And that fear comes from not knowing what to expect, the fact that there's a lot that's unpredictable and out of our control, but also that we're not prepared, right? 60% of US adults are living paycheck to paycheck, right? Which means, generally speaking, over half of us are living paycheck to paycheck. We've been past the stage of pensions for decades and decades. We are getting to the point where even 401k matching isn't a given. Our healthcare expenses are on the rise, right? There's a lot here to unpack. We're going to just go over a few key things. I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. When my husband and I were first married, we went to, before we had kids, we went to a seminar for emergency preparedness. Has anyone ever gone to like an emergency preparedness seminar or heard someone, like we're in Utah, it's a big thing, right? We went to an emergency preparedness seminar. The speaker challenged all of us in that moment to go home immediately and spend 48 hours with no gas, no electricity, and no running water. 48 hours. We were students, we were starving students, and so we could use our laptops if we needed to and plug those in, obviously. So we did. We went home from that seminar. We immediately went into emergency mode. And I tell you what, that is the best way that I that I've found so far to basically be scared into action. Like, oh no, what if this actually happened? So what you need to allow yourself to do is, if you are in the unfortunate position right now of being unemployed, you're kind of in the moment here. But if you're not, don't get comfortable, because you need to know what is your financial emergency preparedness plan. Play that out. What if you were let go, or in any other way, involuntarily unemployed as of today? What would that look like? Write it out. And I'm going to recommend that as product people, we leverage, oh, actually, one more thing first. This is challenging because a lot of our financial life is on autopilot, right? Like, we've done this to ourselves, right? SaaS has proliferated. It's really good, so everything is very much on autopilot right now. The good part of that is that you can automate your savings, investments, retirement, your non-discretionary bills, and a lot of other things. There's a lot of good that comes from that. But the bad can be subscriptions. Like, how many of you have, I've done this, how many of you have had a subscription just going? Like, I once somehow signed up for, I went to a speaker session and I signed up accidentally for the speaker's, like, their subscription to her site or something. It was $35 a month. 3 years later, I was still paying for this, and I'd never accessed the site. And I was like, what? So because things are on autopilot, and then of course online shopping is autopilot sometimes because it's really easy to just, like, your credit card information is saved in the browser, right? So it's just like, ping. And auto transfers, where if an account gets low, you transfer money in. And again, subscriptions. They're kind of evil when it comes to managing your finances. So I recommend that you sit down with yourself or with your spouse or significant other and do Moscow, right? We're all product people. We know how this works. Start with your must-haves, go to your should-haves, etc., right? And then your emergency preparedness plan could look something like this. Your will not haves go away immediately. Your could haves go away after maybe 2 months of unemployment. Your should haves after 4 months, and your must haves after 6 months. By the way, I have been here. I have sold homes, I have sold cars, I have thought about putting my tiny children to work, but we didn't. I have been here. It's not fun, but you start to look at your must haves and it's like, oh, maybe we don't have to have, 2 cars or a house, or, right? So this is a simple way that you can do that. But I highly recommend that you sit down and wrestle through this in a relationship, if you're married or you have a partner, or maybe inside yourself. You are going to have someone who is generally a spender and a saver, right? So you always have that, like, back and forth dichotomy, and you're fighting on that. So the spender versus saver, it makes it very challenging. And when you layer on top of that the other law of relationships, which is someone is a spender, someone's a saver, someone's also a distancer, and someone's also a pursuer. Does anyone know what I mean by this? Has anyone ever heard this? This is the thing. It literally happened to my husband and I yesterday. Don't work from home. It's bad for your relationship. Like, just go to work. Go into the office. No, I'm kidding. But this happened to my husband and I yesterday. So I only throw this out as a little bit of a thought about how to have these conversations. You will have a spender and a saver generally, and you'll have a distancer and a pursuer. The distancer is the person who is going, I can't talk about this right now. Leave me alone. We'll talk about it later, right? And you're walking away. You're walking out the door before they can even finish their sentence. The pursuer is the one going, wait. We have got to figure this out. We just need to sit down at the kitchen table and, like, get this done. So if you've ever, I don't know if any of you have experienced that with your SO. Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, I am the distancer. My husband is the pursuer. If I was in a relationship with myself, nothing would ever get solved. Like, I would be a puddle on the floor because I don't want to actually have the conversation. I don't want to solve anything, okay? And the other thing is I'm a distancer and a spender. So this is bad. Like, this is a bad combo because I don't want to deal with it and I just want to spend all the money, right? So I would also recommend thinking outside the box, thinking outside the budgeting box. I'm going to say something really controversial. I'm going to like prepare myself here. Okay. I hate Dave Ramsey. Like, I think he's the worst. I really do.
I spent 7 years with him.
Okay, like he's the worst, okay? If you like Dave Ramsey, awesome. Like, yes, do that. But I will say, I don't budget. Every time my husband and I have tried to budget, we get in big fights. We just stop budgeting. It's like, hey, our budget is if we want to spend more money, we're going to make more money. Great, I'm happy with that. Let's do it. So that's kind of what we do. It works. It's worked for 20 years. So I would just recommend, as you're thinking about your financial calm, whatever that means for you, right? You need to figure that out. If it is, Renee, actually, can you tell us about your budgeting? How do you budget? What's your financial calm?
I have a spreadsheet that I open up every Friday and I put in what my investments are worth. And then I also go through what my expenses have been over the previous week and I categorize them and I see where I'm spending and how that lines up and what I need to adjust.
Okay.
Husband doesn't like it.
So you have a spreadsheet. Every week you're in there. It makes you feel good to look at every single thing,
It does.
right?
Yep. Yeah, I feel calm.
Yeah, you feel calm. Who's with Renee? Who's a spreadsheeter? Or a Dave Ramsey? It's fine. Like, it's fine.
My wife has a notebook that she does similar.
Okay. So maybe pencil and pen, paper and pen. Budgeting makes me crazy. I don't feel good. I don't like it. It's a waste of time for me personally. It may be something that you really love doing, and that's great, like Renee. But I would just say, as you're thinking about all of that, the reason I have a big problem with Dave Ramsey is because he focuses on debt. What you focus on, what you think about is what you bring about, right? So if you're only focused on, I gotta pay down my debt, I gotta pay down my debt, I gotta pay down my debt, you're gonna have more debt. You will. So I would come from a place of abundance where you can, where you feel comfortable. Again, whatever your version of financial calm is, that's where you want to be, and not a place of scarcity. Debt is about scarcity, right? So again, this is a little controversial, I get it, but this is what I would recommend. So write down what you took away from your chief financial officer. What should your chief financial officer be focused on right now? Do you have a financial emergency preparedness plan that you could pull out if you were laid off tomorrow? It's a question, right? So write that down. Okay, we talked about connecting with others, and your chief sales officer is off meeting her quota or his quota. You're accumulating savings, and you've had maybe a not fun conversation with your spouse or partner about this. And then now let's talk about learning and marketing yourself. The chief product officer and the chief marketing officer in your brain need to be working together, right? And we're product people. This is what we do. We need to be bringing the R&D side of the house and the go-to-market side of the house together. These two things go hand in hand because, as we know, you need to be always learning and building your product and marketing and selling, okay? So, knowing your product. I have a few favorites here. I would love to know yours as well, so message me on LinkedIn and definitely tell me what other things I'm missing. But know who you are. It is kind of astounding how little we know about ourselves, like in general, right? Like we are with ourselves 24/7. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror. We have to hear ourselves talk on Zoom recordings, which sucks. But you need to know who you are. And this is a constant evolving thing that you have to be in discovery for. These are some of my favorites. Would love to know yours, so LinkedIn message me. Insights, Enneagram, Clifton Strengths, Human Design is a great one. A little woo, but I love woo. You also need to know what guides and support you need at this stage in your career. And that could look like a few things. It could be a mentor, a coach. Ask your spouse if they think you need a therapist. Don't ask yourself. Just kidding. Just kidding. And you may need education or skills. You may have actual skill gaps and you need to go back to school or you need to take a course. There's so many amazing courses out there that are free and readily available. Pluralsight, yes, I think they need some help. So go talk to Pluralsight. Also, as part of your product, you need to know what you want. Your career, you need, again, we are product people. Does your career have a vision, a strategy, and a roadmap? And if you don't know what I mean by that, LinkedIn message me, let's talk. Your next tangible goal, and this is different for everyone. Everyone's motivated by something a little bit different. Your pay, your compensation, your title, maybe you're looking for a certain type of experience. Me personally, I knew I wanted a Series A, Series B. That was top of my list. I was like, I'm not even going to interview for companies that aren't Series A, Series B. And I got what I wanted, right? I landed here at Clozd. It's amazing. But this is what you need to be focused on, is what you want. Because this is what happens. Our brains, again, our executive team is a little bit running amok, right? They've hijacked your executive function. And you're talking to a recruiter and you're thinking, oh gosh, this does not sound this doesn't sound like what I want at all. But I'm just going to tell them exactly what I think they want to hear so that I just get the job, right? We're all guilty. We've all been guilty of this, right? Molding ourselves to a job. What you really want to be doing is saying, here's what I have that I'm confident about that no one else can offer you. If that's what you're looking for, then I'm your guy. And I will give you a little hint here. When I've been recently unemployed, this was a major tactic that I would use. I would actually tell all the recruiters, I don't think I'm who you're looking for. I'm not the candidate you're looking for, and this is why. And I would take their list of all their requirements, right? This is reverse recruiting. They have their list of requirements, I have mine, and I would say, yeah, I'm probably not the person for this job because this is what I'm looking for. What happens when you do that is you have that level of confidence and clarity that you can provide to a future employer, and they look at that and they go, oh, maybe that's what we need. That sounds like really good, right? So you need to be really clear about what you want and don't settle. So don't let the guy who's like, I just need a job, right? Don't let that guy take over. The final one here is market yourself. Invest in your brand. This took me 20 years to figure out. 20 years. Hire the damn resume writer. You should not be marketing yourself. You need to outsource this, like right now. Don't hesitate. It's the best couple $100 you'll spend. My recommendation is Red Rocket Resume. Catherine's amazing. Headshots, that's another one. Buy the headshots, right? Don't crop a picture with someone's shoulder in it. My favorite is Bree at Pepper Fox. The other one is always be interviewing. It is not your employer's job, or it's not their business, what you do not on company time, right? Unless it interferes with your job. So do your job, but always be interviewing. You need to control the timing. There is no two-way loyalty, right? Your employer, and I know this is all very meta since I'm standing here with my employer, like at my employer, but there is no two-way loyalty anymore, right? So you need to control your timing. If you feel like, whoa, my company just missed their quarter goal for the third time in a row, there's all these meetings happening, I'm not sure what's going on, right? Last year, I had so many people at Pluralsight asking me, should I be updating my resume? Should I be interviewing? I can't answer that for you, but my advice would be, in general, always be interviewing. Because you don't want to be building the skills of interviewing when you need them most. control the narrative. When you get in an interview, you control the narrative, right? And part of that is, like I said, telling the recruiters what you're looking for. Be confident about that. And then you need to know your message cold. It actually doesn't matter so much what the other person asks. It's about the talking points and the things that you want to get across. Like, what do you want them to know coming out of this conversation? You should have that down cold. So I always say, like, when I'm in an interview, I listen to the question, like maybe 40% of the question. Like, and by the way, you never ever want to say, did I answer your question? I've been guilty of that. Never say that. Because you should know your message, and you should have your intro, tell me about you, your star stories or compelling stories down, and relate those to the company values. If you're having a hard time coming up with your scripting, just a hint, ChatGPT is pretty awesome. If I dumped in, I have 20 some LinkedIn recommendations. I dumped in all my recommendations a couple weeks ago just to see, you know, what it would say. And I was like, oh, okay. So try out ChatGPT. It's pretty awesome. Okay, write down your to-do there. So what does your chief product officer and your chief marketing officer need to be doing? Remember, you are the CEO of your career, of your You Inc. You can maintain that calm in these ways. How you apply this, how you apply connecting with others, accumulating savings, learning, and marketing yourself. How you do that is up to you, right? The very specific things. My recommendation to you, my urge here, like what I would urge you to do is take one thing from each of these and just go get started, right? Do something. If you're currently unemployed, my heart breaks for you. It really does. If you are in a situation today where you're needing to do some of these things quickly, get started, right? It's hard, it's uncomfortable to be unemployed involuntarily, but as we talked about today, and we saw the data, right? Everyone in this room has been through it. So get started, do something, take the first step. This is all that matters, is this ability for us to maintain that equanimity, the calm, the resiliency in our career, non-reactivity. If you zoom in on this line, right, this is a zoomed out view of how we feel. If you zoom in on the daily or the weekly, we're still gonna feel a little bit like this, right? There's still gonna be all this like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person said that to me. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, or I guess that would be this. Oh my gosh, I got recognized at work. That's so awesome. Oh, my spouse and I had a fight. You know, you're going up and down all day. What you want to be able to do is continually build your career narrative in the way that you want to do. You have control over that. As a final note, this career signature, it sounds like, oh wow, like I really know this. Like I know myself and I've been doing this. No. I figured this out last week. Like I was on a panel and I was asked to provide that slide of like my intro. And I was like, what's the thing that summarizes my entire career of 2 decades? And I came up with this. I figured it out last week. So if you don't know what you're building towards, what you want to be when you grow up, it's okay. You are still the CEO of your own career and you are in control of what you do next. So what is your career calm? What are you going to do next to help provide that so you can have that calm and carry on? Finally, one of my top 3 favorite quotes: let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going because no feeling is final. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. She deserves another round of applause. I love how you connected it to us, product managers and designers.
Yeah.
It's perfect. So let's open up for Q&A.
Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Honestly, this is a lot more closely tied to Clozd. I talked to Nate after a webinar a couple months ago, and it was specifically about wishing that there was a Gong integration with Salesforce, so you can see conversations side by side with some of the reports. How's that going?
The Gong integration?
Yes.
Oh, maybe we should ask our product manager, JB. This is my team, guys. JB, woo! So, yeah, so this person, I'm just repeating for the recording, this person actually wants to know about Clozd, which is really interesting. It's not a plant. About the Gong integration with Clozd.
It is coming soon.
Yeah, it is coming soon. Yeah.
Fair enough. It's on the roadmap. Got it.
It's on the roadmap.
I have a question from online. David asks, what exercises or questions can help you identify what you want to do next in your career?
Ooh, questions or exercises to identify what you want to do next in your career? That's a really good question. I don't know if I have a really specific answer. I think for me, I go back to, again, as product people, what's your vision statement? Start there. What is your vision? And it doesn't need to be super specific, but it does need to be something that inspires you, that helps you understand where you're headed. And then I would say, once you have your vision, understand that there is a strategy of how to get there. And if you don't know what that strategy should be, that goes back to know when you need guides, when you need support. Go ask other people. Find the person who's doing the thing that you want to do right now that you're not currently doing. Go find people that are doing it, that have already been there. Go find the pioneers, right? And go ask them, how do I get from here to here? Do I even want to get from here to here? Why wouldn't I? Talk me out of it, right? Why wouldn't I want a career in product management or user experience design? Ask the reverse question. So I would say start with your strategy and then go find your guides to ask those questions of. Do some user research, right? Get out there and ask questions. Any others?
Hi, John New, long-time listener, first-time caller. Just wondering what resources or books would you suggest for personal improvement or things that have helped you?
Yeah, so I tend to buy a lot of business books that I don't read, but I do read a lot of like self-help type books, if that makes sense. And I would say some of the ones around like Enneagram have been really fascinating for me because you not only learn about yourself, but you learn about other people and what makes them tick. And so the behavioral scientist in me is always looking for resources and books about how to understand human behavior. So I would say anything around Enneagram. I'm trying to think of some other good ones that I've read recently. Yes. Oh, Enneagram. Enneagram is a kind of like a Myers-Briggs. There's like 9 types and there's subtypes. And if you go, Enneagram is like ENNEA gram. If you go online, there's tests you can take for free. So it's really awesome. Like if you work with a coach, like an executive coach or a coach, generally speaking, you're going to do a lot of those types of assessments, right? To try to understand like, what makes me tick? How do I describe myself to other people effectively? And so I would start there with some of those. Human design has been the most fascinating for me. So if you want, let's connect and I can send you, it's hard for me to remember resources off the top of my head, but if you send me a LinkedIn message, I'll send you my list, so to speak. So yeah, thanks. John? Yeah.
I was going to say, Clifton Strengths is also updated itself, so it's not even Clifton Strengths anymore. They put out a new version basically.
Yeah. Clifton Strengths, or whatever it is now, the Strengths Finders, it's great for teams because when you're in a team dynamic, it's like you may look at someone and go, oh, they're just so slow. Like they're just plodding along and I'm not getting any work done and it's so frustrating. You're sitting there as an achiever and they're like Mr. or Mrs. Consistency and discipline and methodical, analytical, and you need everyone like that on the team, right? You need, yeah, everyone has something to offer. And so if you're always just looking at that going, oh, that's like so frustrating that they're not moving faster, right? It's like, no, actually, that's the person who's going to prevent you from doing something really dumb because you like to move really fast. So, yes, I agree. I love the strengths finders. Yes.
So how do you jump from that initial, shock of being unemployed, of being laid off, all those feelings that we saw in that cloud?
Yeah.
How do you jump from there to actually start taking action and start, planning your next move? And I'm qualify this, it is I just became laid off for the first time in my career.
I'm so sorry. So my best advice is radical acceptance. I don't know if you've heard that term before. Radical acceptance is a cognitive behavioral therapy fancy term that basically means you have to accept reality for what it is. And so the best way to move forward is actually to sit in the emotions. If you keep what you resist persists, right? If you resist, I feel ashamed, I feel depressed, I feel anxious, I feel sad, I feel worried, I feel hopeless, I feel furious. Whatever your feelings are, they're valid, sit in them. When I was laid off recently, it took me probably 4 weeks to feel normal again. Like I was a little bit messy. Like one day I'd be like, all right, let's do this. I'm gonna apply for some jobs. And then I'd sit and I'd try to update my resume and I'd just fall on the floor, like basically curl up in a ball and cry. So it's like, you're gonna oscillate a lot. And I think my interview for Clozd, I was still in that fog. I'm looking at my manager. Yeah. I don't know if he noticed, but I probably could have cried at any moment when I was interviewing here at Clozd, because it was like within a couple weeks of being laid off. But I would just say, what you resist persists. The best way to move forward is to feel through the feelings. And I know that might sound a little like ephemeral, but I think it's so true. Give yourself space. And then what happened, like what the very next thing that you should do, that's where I think it is very helpful to bring in your support system, bring in your network of people, right, your connections, and get some advice and get some empathy and sympathy going. That's what was most helpful for me, is to actually go take people up on their offer to help and then talk it out. Like, what should I do next? Should I be worried and applying to 100 jobs right now, or should I just kind of wait and see what happens, right? So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Any other questions? Ben?
Yeah, two related questions. At what point in your career do you think it's worth getting an executive coach? And if it is that time, like, how do you find it?
Yeah, my first executive coach was paid for through my company. And so that was my first real experience. They can be quite pricey. So I think part of it is honestly budget related. Like, it is, what can you afford in some ways? And I think you can find a lot of good support, kind of quote unquote for free through your connections and through the people that you're associated with as far as mentors and sponsors. But I would say my advice would be, especially at the point where you're going from individual contributor into director, senior director, and VP level, it's a whole different ball game than like, I'm just maybe managing a small team. Once you get into kind of that director, senior director, VP level, I think many of us struggle to let go some of our IC tendencies. And it's like, what made you successful and got you here will not make you successful and get you there, right? So that mindset shift is so challenging, I think, that I would recommend maybe that as an inflection point, is when you want to go from kind of like IC, maybe managing small teams, into more of that VP level role. I would highly recommend it, because I think it's just difficult for us as humans to kind of like look at our history and going like, we have heuristics that play out, right? It's like, well, I'm a doer. I get a lot of stuff done. I'm really detail oriented. Obviously that got me here and I've been successful and I've done a whole decade career. If I want to be successful, I'll just keep doing that. No, like that's not how you get to VP level, right? Like you can't just keep being a doer and not worried about like all the rest of it that comes with that. So that's my advice. But like I said, I think a big part of it is, what can you actually afford, right? Like, what if that's going to be probably the biggest thing? Because a quality coach is expensive. but worth it, like worth what it will do for your career, what it will do for your relationships, for sure. Does that help?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's do one more question.
Okay, I'm happy to talk after too. Did you have a question, or who are we going to go to? You're good.
Okay, my question is, what tips do you have for pursuing your career and getting more education, or maybe going on interviews while you are employed, and carving out time to make sure?
Yeah, for sure. It can be challenging because when you're unemployed, you're always told it's a full-time job. This is a full-time job, right? So you have to balance it for sure. My approach was I just basically was very selective about recruiters that would be contacting me or jobs that I would see. And so I would maybe focus on 1 or 2 a month, 1 or 2 new opportunities a month, not a shotgun approach where I was like interviewing or applying and then interviewing for a ton of different companies. I was super selective. So I would just say what makes sense for your schedule, for your timeline really, because that's the thing, like you don't want, again, the timing is not going to match up beautifully unless you've been preparing, right? And so you definitely want to be kind of just making progress. I think some progress is better than nothing. If you're in a position where you're like, I should probably be interviewing, right? I would just focus on 1 or 2 opportunities at a time, but only you can decide like what your, work in progress limit is. And then I found that future employers are really good with, I can meet after 5, I can meet during the lunch hour, I can meet early in the morning, right? Especially now with time zones and everything. Like if someone's on Pacific time, it's like, yeah, I can totally meet at, or I guess the best one would be Eastern time. I can meet at 7 a.m., right? They're 9 a.m. So that's just a couple things that I would recommend, but yeah.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. And thank you, Clozd, for hosting us. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you at our next events.
Thank you.
Thanks.